Understanding, however, that there are people coming in who have no idea what I'm going to talk about and have problems. So it's a big task in 1 hour. We're going to try and end absolutely on time. We really work hard to keep these concise. If you have comments, you're welcome to make them. I am not reading the chat today, though. I can't. I have my own little notebook here and things I've got to talk about and keep myself on time. So if you make any comments, my team will read them, but we can't answer questions on this event today. We've had thousands of people sign up, thousands, thousands. So it's a huge audience. It's a lot to talk about. I'm going to go as fast as I can, but try and be as clear as I can. The topic we are talking about is cavities, what really causes them, why people keep getting them. If you don't have cavities yet, maybe you're younger. If you don't have cavities at all, good, but you may want to learn about this anyway because things happen in families. Unexpected cavities arrive. Your sister or your cousin may ask you what you learned, and you can help other people. So I'm going to get started straight away. I just have to do the legal disclaimer thing that this is not diagnosis. If you have a medical or dental emergency, please go see a dentist. I am not helping you with that. If you have a huge cavity that's infected, you need to get it treated. That's ridiculous to think, people do send me messages on YouTube that they have this giant cavity and the tooth's all infected and can they reverse it? It is a little late in the day, I'm sorry to tell you. There is a point of no return as far as I'm concerned. I am talking more to people who are, number one, motivated, they are prone to cavities, they're sick and tired of it, or you're approaching 40 because at 40, something bizarre seems to happen. And I'm going to discuss that in detail right away now when we get started. So hang in with me here. We have three main sections that we're going to talk about today. First of all, what really causes cavities? And it isn't sugar. That's the spoiler alert. It isn't sugar. There are things that cause cavities that you need to know about. And what makes them reoccur or come back? You've had the thing filled, so why do you have another one? What happens? How do fillings and cavities get kind of under teeth? I want to iron that one out early here. And then how do you decide whether you should have that cavity or the area that they see on X-ray drilled, or should you wait? And that's a huge thing. So I'm going to talk about these three things today. And I'm going to begin by saying there's a lot of confusion between a cavity and a filling. And I'm going to try not to make that mistake myself because it's really easy to talk about filling. A cavity occurs by a very slow process. Despite somebody on YouTube who said, "Oh, I started your system 2 weeks ago and now I have a cavity," that would be nothing to do with my complete mouth care system. It takes years of the wrong things happening in your mouth for a cavity to even begin forming. Basically, what occurs is acids from some source, and most often it is from plaque-forming bacteria that float in your mouth. They stick to teeth, they stick to each other and form this plaque, this layer. And it's a layer, not of a substance. It's bacteria that are called columnar. They're little soldier-like, little pencil-like bacteria, little long cylinders. And they stick together and they stick to each other in layers. And because of that, they can get really thick. And the ones on the inside get really irritated and bad-tempered, and they get very aggressive, and they pump out acids. And these acids, of course, because they're stuck to your tooth surface, go in and demineralize, take the minerals out of your teeth that allows them to go inside. Once they're inside, the same process. They keep getting deeper and deeper through the enamel, working their way down channels that exist to the dentin And the concern, and we're going to talk about this, there's a line where the enamel of your tooth, the outer shell of your tooth, meets the inside softer part of your tooth. And at that junction, then the process can speed up because there are open tubes in the dentin. And if you're not quick about changing things around, it is easy for these bacteria to then go down these open tubes. Well, they're not completely open, they're full of liquids and cell arms and things that, if you want to know about, we talk about a lot in my classes. But basically, once it gets to dentin, it is more permeable. The material is softer and this decay can travel faster. And the concern of your dentist is that it'll travel to the nerve on the inside of your tooth. So, right now, we've just talked about an infection, bacteria, remember, a process of these bacteria demineralizing the hard surface of the enamel inside your tooth, and then that allows it to work a little deeper and a little deeper. It's a progressive thing, and it takes usually years, years and years for that to happen. I think the quickest we usually ever see it is in brand new teeth, like children's teeth. And the reason it happens quicker in a child's tooth is that a child's tooth takes about a year to become fully mineralized, to become strong. So this very weak, brand new tooth that's come in the mouth of your 6-year-old can decay within a year because it has no defense. So part of stopping a cavity is having adequate defense and getting rid of the attacker. So it's a two-part process. And most of dentistry doesn't even address defensiveness, which I call prevention, or getting rid of the attacker, which again is a true preventive strategy. What dentistry does is come in after a very late stage of this infection when there's been so much demineralization, weakening of the tooth, that it actually caves in. The structure, which is a skeleton in enamel, the skeleton is quite firm, and then packed within it are these minerals. That makes it so strong. But when the minerals have been dissolved out, it doesn't take much for the skeleton to crack, to crunch, to just disintegrate. And if you have a hole in your tooth that you can see, that is a late, late stage in this disease. It is a stage at which you have a cavity, a caving in of this area of your tooth. Now, the trickery that goes on that makes me really mad is that on X-ray, you can't see demineralization. Well, you do see demineral. When the tooth has started to demineralize or the minerals are being pulled out, the structure may still be there. But on X-ray, when they send these X-rays through your tooth, because the tooth is now without minerals, minerals make the X-ray bounce back. So you see it as white. When the minerals are being dissolved, even though the tooth structure is still intact, the X-ray will show a black hole. And when you look at this X-ray with these black holes, like in between your teeth, and we're going to talk about that in a second, gosh, you go, wow, I got these huge holes. I better go and get them filled. They may not be holes at all. They may just be demineralized areas. And what I teach people to do is help them, A, get rid of the aggressor, the plaque, the acid forming bacteria, all of that. There are lots of strategies I teach to get rid of that so you don't even have that attack, and get rid of the bacteria that are already deep inside the tooth, get rid of them, and put minerals back into this tooth, which, as you can imagine, if it's been going on for years, may take a while. Most people want it to happen tomorrow, and it doesn't. It takes time. And unfortunately, this whole thing, the tooth may not have even been damaged from a structural standpoint, except lost minerals, which can easily go back into teeth. And nowadays, you are hearing about that. When I started teaching this 50 years ago, People are like, oh no, teeth don't remineralize. Enamel's enamel. Teeth are like a teacup. You can't repair them. Now, if I'm sure you've heard, because of certain toothpastes out there that I do not recommend, but they put minerals back into teeth, not the way I want you to put them back in. But anyway, that's not what we're going to talk about today, but hydroxyapatite toothpaste is now a big $25 tube of toothpaste. So you are hearing that you can put minerals back into teeth. Well, guess what? The toothpaste I've been recommending for 50 years does the same thing. And if you use my strategy, you do it even quicker and even better than anything else I can explain to you. So that's my strategy: getting rid of the infection, putting minerals back into teeth, and trying to repair the entire structure of a tooth if it hasn't already caved in. And in some circumstances, even if it has begun to cave in, if you catch it early enough and you're committed enough, and that's the state of how motivated are you, you can wait and you can see these cavities rebuild themselves. Cavities, the caving in can actually harden up. Will you rebuild completely? We'll talk about that at the end. So we've just talked about what really causes cavities is acidity. It is an attack by bacteria that are fed by carbohydrates and sugars. Yes, that's true. That's where the sugar idea comes in. And, you know, there is also an element of how much every day are you working against the demineralizing. So there are parts to this that we're going to go into in a little bit more detail here, again, because it's important you know how you can reverse cavities, and we'll do that at the end. But I do want to tell you one thing, because our next topic is what makes them reoccur and come back. You had your cavity filled. You actually you didn't know anything about this, and you thought you had a big hole in your tooth because the x-ray looked like that, and the dentist drilled it out, put in a filling. So why would it come back? And I drew a funny little picture just to illustrate what happens. You see, these are bacteria, the little dots all around are bacteria that are living in your mouth. They are floating in saliva. They actually are coated all over your mouth. They're up your nose. They're in your sinuses. They're down your throat. They're everywhere. And they're not necessarily all bad, but there are plaque bacteria that exist in most people's mouths. And my goal is to eliminate those. You don't need plaque bacteria floating around. They will also always be at risk for getting them reinfected. But my strategies basically defend you from this attack. You can measure the bacteria in your saliva. I measured mine. I have no plaque bacteria in my saliva. However, if you had your cavity filled, if this cavity was filled with a filling when you were, say, 18, if they never told you how to get rid of this floating, damaging aggressor in your mouth, it may take this aggressor another 10 years, 15, sometimes 20, depending on how much you snack and sip and have conditions like dry mouth that make things harder to remineralize, to counter this damage. What'll happen is fillings tend to attract plaque to their edges. And so this white area around the filling is where these bacteria are going to go. When your dentist says, oh, you've got a cavity under your filling, what he really means is you've lost the enamel at the top where the filling once met the enamel. That is chipped away because your enamel isn't strong enough. And then the bacteria get down, they come down and they can channel under the filling on both sides or all around. If somebody tells me that that filling just fell out, that's what happened. It basically channeled all around the filling. And then, of course, there's nothing holding the filling in, so it will fall out. That tells me what? That tells me your mouth's full of aggressive bacteria and that you are not using a mouth care routine or strategy that is adequate to mineralize your teeth on a daily basis to stop this from happening. And the other place it happens is in between teeth. where one tooth meets another. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But that is one of the reasons why teeth take. What a dentist called me the other day and said, oh, he was getting older and, he was so sad to see that his teeth is taking a death spiral. That's what they call it. They call it a death spiral because it occurs as you get older. The fillings that you had done are now needing to be redone because of this. What is this? It's not really a new disease. It's simply that when you had the filling done in the first place, nobody told you how to stop the attack, what was happening. And when you reach 40, all these things often come as a perfect storm. And what I explained to this dentist is there is no such thing as a filling that ages. Silver amalgam filling isn't going to fall out because it ages. It's going to fall out because the enamel around it got demineralized, got eaten away by the same bacteria that caused the cavity. And we're going to talk about these ones on the side in just a second. But basically, it's incorrect care. And I'm going to just throw out now my thing is brushing and flossing is inadequate to protect you from cavities. We need a better strategy. When you're young, if you are not at risk for cavities, brushing and flossing may be fine. I mean, if that's what floats your boat and you think that's what's saving you, like a lot of young hygienists, good luck. Great. I'm not condemning it. Good. What I know from 50 years of being intense about stopping people needing unnecessary dental treatments, that's my mission in life. It has been since 1972. I know that you need more than that help if you are a woman experiencing hormonal changes because your mouth is going to become acidic. It isn't just the bacteria in your plaque that's forming acids. Your own saliva is demineralizing your teeth. If you are under stress, particularly women, and again, it's one of these irritating things where men get away with a lot of things that women don't when they're younger. They have different problems when they're older, ladies. So don't feel too bad. But I do feel bad for women because they have been told to brush and floss that is inadequate. How is floss going to protect you from your own saliva? Saliva goes everywhere in your mouth. And whether it's carrying plaque bacteria or not, the acidity is going to damage your teeth and promote the conditions for more plaque to form. So when the hygienist is waving her little bony finger at you saying, oh, you say you're floss, but I know you don't, that may be completely untrue. Let me know if you agree with me, because I know people who have flossed their lives out and been told they're not flossing, and they don't understand it because they're telling the truth. And if you have the right strategies, we can get on top of this. And that's what I teach people to do with a complete mouth care system, with things that are on YouTube, with my book explains everything. I have been teaching and teaching and teaching and trying to do it better for decades and with success. And the success stories are everywhere as well if you read the reviews on the book and online. So there is no reason why teeth have to take a death spiral. But what usually happens is that a filling will only last 10 to 15 years. Same thing with a sealant. You may have had a sealant put on your tooth at the age of 10. Well, by the age of 25, 10 or so years later, it becomes a filling. And then the filling is a recurrent filling. And then these fillings that go between teeth. And I just want to explain why that happens. And that isn't your fault either. And it isn't because you didn't floss. It's because pressure gets put on a filling. If you've had a central filling in your tooth, as you bite together, there are biting pressures that usually in a healthy tooth would be dissipated or spread over the whole of the tooth. But once you've had the tooth cut, you lose that ability, and the forces then go down straight through the filling. And at this point, central point of the tooth, underneath the filling, they shear out sideways and cause cracks at this very point where the tooth is its widest. That's why the forces go out there. And unfortunately, that's the very point where teeth bump against each other. That is the interproximal space. That is what, if you're a flosser, you floss up and down. You can't stop those cracks happening if you've got a tooth with a great big filling in the center of it. Those little cracks are going to happen. They're going to happen every day. And unless you're repairing it every day with healthy mouth that does not let bacteria get in there. And my systems remineralize this area every day when you brush your teeth, twice a day. You're going to remineralize that area. And if you're a flosser, please do me a favor. Floss when you got toothpaste, good toothpaste, like the one I recommend, in your mouth, because you'll floss the toothpaste here and it will help remineralize these little cracks so they don't become the reason why your one surface filling, the filling in the middle of your tooth, now is a three surface filling on each side. And usually these interproximals happen all at once. If your teenager says he has 15 cavities, that's probably where they all are. And it's probably because the center of the tooth was sealed, changed the forces. It wasn't because he didn't floss. It was because he has infection in his mouth that has never been corrected and that he's maybe tried to floss. It doesn't stop that disease happening. So, it is about inadequate oral care, using the wrong products or inadequate products. Plus, it's from constant sipping and snacking, because most things we sip and snack are either acidic, or if they're a carbohydrate, they will turn to become sugars that feed these bad bacteria that form acids. It's a process. It's not necessarily the carbohydrates stuck in your gum. That doesn't necessarily become the problem. It can, and the stickier the food is, if it contains a carbohydrate or a sugar, the more damaging it can be, because it's sitting there feeding any bad bacteria. But what I do is say elimination of all sugars is virtually impossible, not on a healthy way. I believe there are some sugars, and you can disagree with me, but I believe there are sugars that we need. Some people need them more than others. I just simply package your eating and drinking into sessions so that you can use my strategies and stop snacking and sipping and allow mineralization to occur in your mouth to counter the damage. And if you counter the damage that's done every day, then that's great. That's going to be, your key to success. Now, what's against you, what's fighting against you, is if you don't have saliva in your mouth, right? Because your saliva carries the minerals that we want to put back into your teeth. That's nature's way of repairing your teeth. As you finish eating and drinking, if you stop. If you ideally end with a tooth protective food, there are all kinds of tooth protective foods. You can learn more about those. Xylitol, what I talk about all the time, and my love of my life is xylitol. Xylitol does special things to make even better saliva in your mouth, but it is the saliva in your mouth that carries the minerals. And the better we eat, I get into nutrition to make your saliva even more mineralized to go into your teeth. And then this period that you give it, how long do you wait after eating to allow this mineralization to occur? You want to allow 2 hours if you possibly can. Because people look at me and go, 2 hours without a cup of coffee or without eating or sipping or water? You mean I can't even sip water? I mean, they are outraged. I have Sjogren's, I have to drink. No, try this. I beg you, because nature has the best solution for cavities right there in your mouth, your own saliva. So, you may be investing in buying water flossers, electric toothbrushes, which I don't recommend for most people. I do for kids. I do for people with arthritis. There are certain caveats. But you don't need to invest a fortune. You just need to know the basics that are never usually taught to you. And they are relatively simple, although they are specific. And if you don't know the specifics, you can go in circles. And if you have, for example, you're taking allergy medications, that may create several problems. If you have a dry, infected nose and sinus, that's going to bother your mouth health. It does, it's all connected. Even a child who has a lot of ear infections probably has plaque in their mouth. You need to consider not just xylitol, the zellies that I talk about all the time. And for kids, we have cherry berry flavors that were developed nearly 30 years ago now. And then there's xylitol nasal spray I have nothing to do with, but it's fabulous if you have nasal problems. Trying to use xylitol to stabilize, normalize, and get your nose healthy. At the same time, you get your mouth healthy. And if you're taking allergy medications, and if you're spraying some sort of allergy spray up your nose, you may be actually creating more difficult conditions. The conditions in which plaque bacteria grow more, the conditions in which nasal bacteria are very unhappy. I would far rather you try, and I don't want to go against your doctors or anything like that, but try xylitol before you get into these antihistamine type things that dry and make all the tissues of your mouth and your nose kind of dehydrated and open up the passages, sure, so you can breathe better, but you may be creating another spiral, that downward spiral of where treatment creates more treatment. And to finish this little segment on, what are the biggest misconceptions about cavities is that you inherited them. No, you don't inherit cavities. You may inherit a dry mouth. You may inherit those bad bacteria. They pass in saliva. If moms kiss their babies, if they have lots and lots of plaque bacteria in their mouths, they can transfer to baby teeth and create these problems. So it's not sort of like genetic as much as transfer of the bacteria, and that you can change that. My family, my father had all his teeth out at 35. My mother was told to have all her teeth taken out at 45. Fortunately, at the very moment, I was able to turn things around as a dental student, figuring it out, helping her, watching her for 50 years, helping my own kids, helping my grandkids, thousands and thousands of patients. Yeah, even if you are born into a family with bad teeth, for whatever reasons, we can figure that out. Is it that they all had this infection? You can take a saliva test today. Is it that you've got, condensed nose? I mean, or if you've had a lot of teeth taken out as a kid or something, which happened in England a lot when I was there practicing in the 70s. We would just take out baby teeth. Well, baby teeth hold the space for adult teeth. Keep your jaw wide enough. I mean, there are so many reasons because if you have a blocked nose and you breathe through your mouth, or if you're born in that sort of facial structure that maybe your lip is shorter and your front teeth get dry. I teach people lick the saliva in your mouth round your teeth. I bet you're all doing that right now, right? Your saliva is full of the minerals you need to heal your teeth. So use it and be aware if your mouth gets dry. If you have medications, a lot of blood pressure medications, ask your pharmacist, you know, is this going to dry my mouth? I mean, yeah. And if you use my strategies and xylitol in the amounts that I am recommending have no impact on cardiovascular health, that whole thing, again, I'm not going to go through it now, but that was really structured by private equity groups making a pharmaceutical equivalent of xylitol. And we can talk about, they gave a massive dose to sick old people. But if you're just taking it after meals, the small amount, using a xylitol nasal spray, there is no risk. And if you're on blood pressure medications, heart medications, I can refer you to the Baldonine folks who are preventive cardiologists, fully in support of xylitol. And it will really help stabilize the bacteria in your mouth that are crucially important for the production of nitric oxide, which lowers your blood pressure, helps your breathing, and helps your brain health. So, all of this, is it connected? Absolutely. And it's not about just giving up sugar. Do you see what I mean? It's about knowing if you're taking medications that dry your mouth. It's about the structure of your mouth. Your teeth get dry. It's not bad luck. It's something that you can do something about. It's where you are at present doesn't have to be how you are for the rest of your life. That's the message here. And do fillings fix these problems permanently? No. They will fix a problem once you got rid of the whole bacterial mess in your mouth and you've got structural defects. That's the time, I believe, to have a filling done. Have the filling done, and then your tooth should be stable. It should be nice and smooth. It shouldn't get food stuck in it. I have fillings that were done in my childhood, and without giving all my personal information away, that was over 60 plus years ago. And at dental school, I have one of the first ever white fillings. You look at the ADA website, they'll say they last 10 to 15 years. That filling was done when I was at dental school in the 60s with the very first kind of white filling material. And they took out a silver one to put a white one, and it's still there. I had it checked a couple of years ago, and it's perfect. So fillings don't age. Teeth don't age any more than bones age. You can get more osteoporosis as you get older, 100%. But can you work against it if you have the right exercise routines and you're eating and you understand osteoporosis? You've got to understand the biochemistry of how bones sort of basically demineralize, and then with the right conditions, they can remineralize. And if you work out appropriately, I'm sure there are some health people out there now who know they can reverse osteoporosis, not by slumping in a chair and doing nothing and just saying, poor me, but by working against it. And it's the same in your mouth. It gets harder as we get older because we are slightly more at risk because of dry mouth, because of medications, because you've got old fillings that are more, they put you at greater risk. So I think I've gone through that, and included what actually makes cavities worse. Well, it's the previous work done. It's if you've had fillings, if you're using Invisalign, if you've been whitening your teeth, which is the big craze of the last 20 years, you will have weakened your enamel. And you will have weakened it by putting peroxide on your teeth that actually changes the protein structure inside your teeth. And when you have a cavity, the change in that protein structure has basically opened it up for the cavity to travel faster. I'm not saying that whitening teeth makes you have cavities, but one of the things of those white strips, for example, is they're very acidic. They're a bit like battery acid. And they take out minerals so that the whitening stuff can go into your tooth to whiten it. That's how it works. That's why I'm so opposed to it. It's the absolute opposite of what natural tooth whitening does, which is build more and more minerals into teeth that makes them look. Teeth are not white. My teeth are not white. They're translucent. You're looking inside glass. My outer layer is enamel glass. Why does it look a color? It's the reflection and refraction of light. It isn't what we think it is. And this whole idea of whitening and bleaching teeth is just such a misnomer and such a racket in a way that's been going on for 20 years. So a lot of people who started whitening their teeth and see these people on television with uber white teeth. I mean, I don't know what you think about them. I look at them and go, oh my gosh, look at that guy. Does he really think his teeth look great? And they're a color that doesn't exist in nature. So that doesn't help. Snacking and sipping. Today, everybody thinks they got to travel with a water bottle. I'm the only person I know in America that doesn't even have a water bottle. I am not afraid of dying of thirst. I don't have a water bottle anywhere around here. I am in the middle of my 2 hour mouth resting time where I allow my own mouth not to have to deal with snacking, sipping, drinking, eating. And so, if you package your meals with these periods in between, you will soon discover that your teeth feel a lot stronger and better very quickly. People who are constantly sipping, constantly, all the time, wash the minerals out of their teeth and end up, they're the people who say, oh, I bit on something and my part of my tooth flew off. What should I do? Change your habits, number one. So, plaque magnets are created by fillings, white fillings that are plastic actually attract plaque to them, to the edges of them. Same thing with sealants. They attract this plaque that's floating in your mouth to the edges of the sealant so that then it will turn into a cavity, or to the edges of your filling, which is when it then turns out to be recurrent decay, this recurring caries around the edge of your filling. Is there anyone out there who's had that done and they didn't know? Has this explained to you why? It was nothing you did, just nobody told you that this problem was still in your mouth. You thought it was fixed. So, pregnancy is another issue that people don't fully understand. When you're pregnant, your mouth becomes acidic for 40 weeks. It's just the way it is. It doesn't matter. And there's nothing you can really do about it. You can't eat to change it. And the same sort of thing happens during menopause. Nobody's talked about it. Nobody's talked about the fact that women's teeth are different, not because they are different. They're under different conditions. And the majority of women end up with cavities earlier than men. When you go through pregnancy, it can be a nightmare. And I'm so sorry that you don't know how you could prevent it. And again, I'm a mom of five. I have these grandkids all over the place. So we have been through pregnancy in the family lots and lots of times with zero dilemma because we know how to handle this acidity with the strategies that I teach. And I haven't got the time to go through the whole of that, but I've given you a gist of what I teach. And if you can, delay and stop this disease from progressing and give yourself time, more time to remineralize your teeth, this mouth resting, and use better products morning and night, you will start to tip the balance. Damage only happens when there's more damage every day than there is repair. It's a tipping thing. And if you're sipping soda, fizzy drinks, citrus fruits, I don't care, lemonade, good things, healthy things. But if you're constantly feeding the bacteria with sugar from carbohydrates or sugars, even in fruits, even in healthy vegetables, doesn't matter. That's the problem. It's the continuous nature. It's the total length of time in your mouth. And after everything you eat, there is a 1 hour period of damage. So if you keep eating, those 1 hour periods just join together to be continuous. Conversely, if you eat and drink in one session called a meal and stop with some xylitol, then you leave 2 hours between meals, you get this remineralization that occurs that will counterbalance what just happened during your meal. You can eat and drink sugar. You can eat and drink dessert. I have dessert. People have seen me behind a dessert case in Rochester, New York, and that's a whole nother story. And I eat desserts and I like chocolate and I do drink coffee and so on. But I don't fear it. I do it in a session followed by mouth resting. And I think I've said that. Now, the other thing we do need to talk about, C-trick workers. If you work at night, that changes the dynamics of your salivary rhythm. Now, saliva has a rhythm, and I'm talking about people who sleep at night and work in the day. If you are working at night and sleeping in the day, we need to talk because it's different, or you need to read my book and learn. Smokers, vapors, more damage, more drying is going on. So you've got to work harder. People with implants, implants are so hard to take care of. So don't think just because you had cavities and you got rid of them and now you've got an implant that you're finished. You've still got these bacteria in your mouth. And if you don't do something about them, these are the bacteria that can go on to form gingivitis and set you up for the next event called periodontal disease. So we have to get rid of these bacteria right at the beginning, ideally in childhood. This is what I'm going to fight for now in my retirement years, to change the way we take care of children's teeth before the age of 4. Telling mothers, teaching mothers, get this under control by the age of 4, and these children should live their lives without all this dental damage. Just finally, on this topic here, on this section that we're talking about what makes cavities worse, and I think you're beginning to understand it's a ebb and flow kind of thing, and we can undo the damage that meals do if we corral our meals. I like to describe teeth. And I mentioned they're not like china teacups that you just bleach and then they go white. They are like a coral reef. They are living. They've got blood vessels and nerves and stem cells and all kinds of stuff inside them. They have living cells that have these long, fabulous arms that go through the dentin that can actually pump out cement to stop the cavity from coming if it's coming very, very slowly. And the reason that I'm able to say that is I've seen it. I was privy to people who had been prisoners during the World War II and had not had they had cavities when they were taken prisoner. They had survived the war in these prison camps. They had then ended up at the end of their lives in the assisted living centers where I was treating. And I saw how the tooth, because they never had a filling, had actually put its own little filling by the cement that gets pumped out by these so-called odontoblasts that live inside the dentin in your tooth. So don't let people tell you that once it's in the dentin, there's no hope. Your tooth is an amazing complex, very underappreciated. So I look at teeth like a coral reef. They're alive, they have capability, but they very much depend on the environment around them. If this is my coral reef, it is the ocean that is bringing either good things or bad things like minerals into my teeth, or is it bringing bacteria or chemicals that are going to damage them? And that's where the whitening, I believe, is very damaging, where your own saliva is the liquid, the ocean that you want to bathe your teeth in. So, you know, let's talk about when to drill and when to let your tooth heal. This is the last section that I want to cover today, because I think you got the message generally that you can do a lot if you start to get rid of the bacteria, if you start to replenish the minerals in your teeth. So what do you do if you've got this recurrent decay and the filling fell out? Now what do you do? Should you, I mean, I've had people say, do I put eggshells in there? Well, what do I do? I would, if it were me, and I am not telling you that this is what you must do, but I would first see how that tooth feels. If when the tooth fell out, you have no sensation, and it's a huge filling, there's a very good chance that tooth is dead. Sorry to tell you that, but that's the most likely thing. As this was channeling round your filling, poisons were being pumped into the tooth, and the center of your tooth is about there. So there's a very good chance that those bacteria going under your tooth killed the tooth. Okay, now what should you do? I would run right to an endodontist, a specialist in root canal treatments and talk with them. Can you save the tooth or not? I am passionately an advocate for endodontists. They do wonderful root canals. I would never send you to a dentist. Even my best friends who are dentists are not trained in the latest technology of endodontic work. And the equipment you have to buy to do this, it's unlikely that your dental office, unless it's a multidisciplinary office where they have an endodontist on site, is going to have this amazing equipment they now have. They go in with goggles and microscopes and little robots and all kinds of incredible stuff and scans to see where they are. And no one can do this like an endodontist who's trained and skilled and prepared to put a sign out their door that that's all they're doing. They can probably save that tooth for you if the filling fell out and you have no sensation. If the filling fell out, say it was a little smaller than I've drawn here, and you feel sensation, now the filling's gone. Every time you eat something, it's cold or hot, or the sweet stuff makes your eye go peculiar. And the pain, because it's painful, right? That hot and cold and stuff is painful because there's only one sensation that a tooth has. Think about it. The tooth doesn't tell you, oh, that's really hot. The tooth goes, ow. And it doesn't tell you, oh, that was really cold. It's pain. There's one sensation. The odontoblasts that are the pain sensors in your tooth, they sense hot, cold, and pressure changes. And when they sense any of these things, they send a signal to your brain, and your brain says, ouch. So we don't know, because it's ouch, if it's bad ouch or good ouch. The only way you can tell is the length of time that pain remains ouching for. Sorry to teach like babies, but I don't know how else to describe it. And that pain sensation, if it goes more than 2 minutes, you better go see that endodontist I was just talking about, because the chances are your nerve inside the tooth is now inflamed, is already too late, too irritated. But if we aren't at that stage, let's assume that you have not got a filling that's fallen out, because that's a really sort of special thing. And I generally say either go to the endodontist or get that tooth filled fairly quickly. You could ask your dentist if you could delay. And delay, definitely, if we have these interproximal things showing on x-ray for the first time. And if you've been going regularly, you should be able to look back. Were they there 2 years ago? Were they there 1 year ago? Because that will tell you how aggressive they are. If they were there 2 or 3 years ago, or you haven't been in 7 years, it may have been a bad habit for 7 years that oh, I started drinking that fizzy drink. Oh, I started giving up fluoride. I started smoking, vaping. I was at college. I picked up these bacteria, because you do pick up these bacteria from partners, people you kiss. Sorry to tell you that, but it's true. And you had healthy teeth, and then you met this guy, and oh my gosh, 3 years later, 4 years later, they're telling you you've got the beginning of these cavities that you have never had before. Well, what do you do then? I would delay. If you're going to make a big change, and don't give up the guy, you don't have to do that, to get that guy on my program. And it could be a girl. I'm not calling you out, guys, but it's often that way. You can make a decision. Am I going to deal with this, as I would say, holistically? Get rid of this, talk to my partner, see if they're prepared to get on xylitol and change things. Brushing teeth together at night can be a really fun thing. I just let you know that. If you understand what you're doing, and it's a therapy, and my system is more like a spa treatment than it is some nasty thing where you're spitting out nasty things. So anyway, without getting into that, try to remineralize these areas. And if you think that you only have a very small cavity, or it was just a little filling that fell out, the more you can remineralize it prior to a filling being done, the more chance that these cells in the middle of the tooth, these odontoblasts, will have created a barrier for themselves. And when the dentist drills to make the filling, you will be at less risk of him catching the nerve and killing the tooth. Because that is your risk. Your biggest risk is when you are having a filling replaced or filling done, you are going, especially one where the cavity's been there for a while, your concern is you don't want to kill the tooth. And dentists will quickly have you believe that if you don't get that filled, it's going to be a root canal. That is usually what's being said. That all the patients come to me, oh, they told me my kid, if I don't fill them, they're going to be a root canal. Well, yes, if you don't change something, you have to change the mouth resting time has to exist. You have to change the last thing at night. You are not eating, drinking, sipping, snacking, anything after you clean your teeth with my complete mouth care system last thing at night. You are using the complete mouth care system some of the time in the morning where it will not be disturbed for 2 hours. You have to give your teeth these multiple times during the day to repair and remineralize themselves. Then you go back to the dentist, maybe in 3 months or 6 months, have another x-ray. How does the x-ray you've just had taken compare with the one that showed the damage? And what you'll be looking for is the integrity of the outside enamel. This may still look bad inside, but has this enamel actually repaired itself? Dentists think it can't. I'm just telling you, it can with my system for lots of reasons, and I won't explain them here. Once you've got the seal on the tooth where the enamel is now complete, it may take another 6 months for the inside to gradually mineralize, and this will all become non-black. It will become lighter and grayish in color. So there you are. You can choose what you want to have done. You can choose to try at the very beginning when you first have a cavity to remineralize it. That's the ideal because then you end up with a pristine tooth. You can be told you have recurrent caries like this and choose to use my complete mouth care system if you're not getting sensations of pain, and potentially go back and this enamel will have sealed up and then all of this will seal up. My system gets rid of the bacteria. Don't worry about it being underneath. Once it's sealed, it's like cutting off the straw that it drinks from. What's basically happening is bacteria inside the tooth have an access until the enamel has joined over the top. They will have access to sugars. And by using my system, my strategies, the xylitol, all of it, you are cutting off its food supply. You are sending down the straw, some xylitol to kill the bacteria, basically inactivate the bacteria that are causing trouble. The closest is working for you. Everything is happening, and this should all remineralize, even though it may not show an x-ray that it's remineralized for about a year. It takes time. It's like when you break your arm or your leg, you may be in a cast, and they may take the cast off after 3 months, and you look at the x-ray and you still got a gap there, and you're like, really? And they say, yeah. It's got to take time to mineralize. Same thing with that tooth. It takes a while to fully mineralize. So what I do, I would remineralize always, except if I had a dead tooth. You can always go to the endodontist and ask them, is my tooth dead or not? They may charge you for that, but then you'll know. And if it's not dead, get mineralizing. And then if you've still got a hole that needs fixing, then you fix it. But when you fix it with a good dentist who is minimally invasive, and I talk about that, which dentists learn how to be minimally invasive, you'll have a filling that should, like mine, last all your life, 60, 70, I'm hoping they're going to last 100 years. So there we go. Pain signals tell you the difference. I would ask questions before you agree to having a filling, always, and realize that dentists aren't being mean. They're just not trained. And because you have to wait and there's risk, and they don't want to be told, oh gosh, now you need a root canal, they would rather give you that bad news because they don't want you coming back to them in 6 months and saying, now you need a root canal. So you have to take the responsibility. And I say, don't take it if you're not prepared to make the changes. The changes are simple, they're not expensive. And you could save yourself a fortune if you have been told you have 15 cavities that need reversal. So I really hope I've been helpful. I see things, I see messages popping up, and I haven't read any of them. Thank you for your attention today. Thank you for your time. I hope you've learned something new. If you have, I'd love to have a thumbs up because I try to make it relevant and clear because I've been teaching it for so long. I know the questions that people ask me. And, this whole thing, should you or shouldn't you use fluoride? Should you, shouldn't you use mouthwash? Should you, shouldn't you use xylitol? I know it all. And I'm just telling you, I use my system. I am not scared of the things that I recommend used in the way that I recommend them. Just like salt. Salt, a little bit of salt is good for us. Eating pounds of salt every day, massive amounts, without enough other things is hugely detrimental to your health. So we've got to be realistic here, guys. And a lot of these studies being pumped out there are fear-mongering, clickbait. Don't get taken in by it. Look beyond. And if I can help you, I am here to help you. I have no real agenda beyond trying to get children's teeth healthy before the age of 4. Why? Because if we can populate the adult teeth with healthy bacteria, covering them in the grooves, they will have healthy bacteria for life, those people. So if you've got the answers that you needed, now's the time. I'm quite happy if you pop off the call because if you feel good about knowing what you need to do, I'm happy. I've done my job today. If you still feel that you're not entirely sure what my system is, what I do, how I teach, would you like some more of my help? I'm grateful you came today. And what I'd like to do today is tell you the other resources that I have, a little bit more about them. But if you feel you're all set, thank you for your time. I appreciate you. I appreciate if you comment on my YouTube videos nicely and get rid of those trolls for me. I'm happy and thank you. If otherwise, if you're okay, and again, give me a thumbs up. I want to take the remaining 5-6 minutes of our hour to talk about what it is that I can help you beyond this. And this is really, I've never wanted to sell anything as a dentist, but how do you do things differently without? I mean, dentists sell fillings, but you need them, right? Sometimes. I am now using a team. I built a team of people. And in order to pay them, I have a need to create a product where this team can really help you. We do customer service like you wouldn't believe. We have once a month question and answer. We read all the questions that people send us. We subdivide them. We have an AI that an assistant called Emily that has been trained on my responses. And because I get thousands and thousands and thousands of questions, Emily has to keep getting retrained. We send some of the questions to Emily to answer to these people who have immediate needs, like what kind of toothpaste do you recommend, Ellie? I don't honestly have time to tell you anymore. Somebody emailed me the other day. Has Listerine changed the packaging? Do you still recommend it? And I haven't got time to answer those questions. I have bigger questions I need to answer. So we have a trained AI assistant, and we keep an eye on Emily if she goes off track. I ask her questions to make sure that that's right. So This tooth and gum re gum and tooth, sorry, gum and tooth rebuild program is basically a comprehensive, it's comprehensive. It supports you and guides you. And you can go to the dentist and be told something new that you didn't know you had before and get in touch with us. And through that program, be guided perhaps to a video that's going to answer the question, perhaps guidance to, you've forgotten how do you do this? Something simple that Emily could answer. Or you have a really difficult, specific question about should you have this tooth taken out or should you have an implant of some particular kind, or I don't know. We're asked all kinds of questions. I can't diagnose, but I can give you my best advice, best question to ask, best time to maybe go and get a second opinion from another live dentist, and who would I recommend you see. So we do this, and when people fail, that's another thing. They come to the gum and tooth rebuild program because they've used my system maybe for a year, and they're being told, no, you've still got plaque on your teeth. And I've had that happen. How can that be? And together we have looked at it. Or your child has suddenly developed cavities and you're really not sure. And my team will tell you, sometimes they send me an email, I send the email back, they send it to a person. Sometimes I'll call that person. I call a lot of people because there's nothing like talking to me about, and people say all the time, thank you so much. Oh, I feel so much better. I cannot talk to every single person who signed up on this. We had I think it was nearly 4,000 people sign up. I can't talk to 4,000 people, but I can help you solve your problems by using the videos, the steps, the booklets, you know, the nuances. Maybe you're using the Listerine for too long. Maybe you need to back down on that because of certain things that you did before you started the complete mouth care system, or because you're pregnant, or you just had a baby. Then that will put you in a different category. So we're trying to help people with their questions by almost triaging them, which is really what every dentist should do. Are you motivated is the first question. And all the people come to me, I believe are motivated. Then what is your problem? Where is it? Is it a cavity? Is it a gum disease problem? Are you trying to avoid treatment? And then how can we help you? And maybe you're stuck, or maybe you're feeling depressed, that you're not sure. Are you too far gone? I can tell you the story of my mother, about to have all her teeth taken out and full dentures. And she got on my strategy, and she is really the reason I teach this today. She lived 50 years with the same teeth and minimal dentistry. The gum disease went away. It was cured. Don't buy into that thing that you cannot cure gum disease. You can, and we will help you sort out what do you need. Sometimes you may need treatment. Sometimes you may need an antibiotic. Not always, and I wouldn't jump into it. So that is why we teach these things. That is the structure. We charge $299 for this membership, which gives you a year with Emily. It gives you full access to all these videos. It gives you once a month a live question and answer that I don't even make the outline of what I'm going to talk about until a few days before, because we take in these questions, we analyze them, put them in buckets, and then I take the most challenging questions. And then they're recorded. If you miss the video, if you're on the Gum and Tooth Rebuild program, you can have access to these past tricky questions that already have been answered. You might find it interesting. It's kind of like a forensic review of what's going on in your mouth and how can you solve it. So if you link, we should have a link in the chat, and you can get more information from this link about this program. I know a few people out of all the people over, because I've had a boot camp now that turned into this gum and tooth rebuild program because I couldn't handle all the questions, all the interaction. I was about to give up and retire. This is my way of helping you. I really believe it's been helpful. The people who've taken this class, this program, I think a year of it is probably all you need. I think that we can still interact with you. You'll find there are ways through YouTube after a year. You may only need this for a one-time deal. I don't know yet because this is our first year. And I think people have got so much out of it. They've been so grateful. We have 65-year-olds who've had a lifetime of nothing but dental problems emailing us, being grateful and thanking us. And it's not a lot. I'm not teaching you anything that's hugely difficult to do. It's just got to be taught so you understand why you would be stopping with the coffee after lunch and those simple things. So I hope it's been helpful. Thank you all for being here. I love getting this message out. Anyone that won't do this, probably the next best resource I think is my book, The Kiss Your Dentist Goodbye, second edition, which is on Amazon, or a link from my website. If you go to the resource page of my website, you can go to the book. And the book, if you can read it and like to read, go to the library, maybe order it from the library, get the librarian to order it, get it out there. Let's give it to friends. Let's give it to the hygienist. It's not detrimental. I'm not anti-dentist. I'm not. I'm just trying to get a preventive message that makes nobody any money out there. So I hope you've had a great day so far, and I hope I haven't spoiled it for you. I hope you've learned something you can share with somebody else. And, once your teeth feel great, I'm telling you, you don't need the old tongue scrapers and all that garbage. Your mouth feels happy, feels wonderful, and that's for life. I've had 50 years, 60 years of this, and I want to share it with you. Thanks so much. Take care.